Welcome to the Power of Purity podcast, the show that empowers men to experience their sexual gift in a healthier way. Now here's your host, Tony Ingracia.
Hey guys, Tony here. Welcome back to the Power of Purity podcast, and thank you for being with me today as we continue with the third edition of this particular episode that we started a couple weeks ago, entitled, Is Scheduling Sex a Good Idea? And if you've been listening along, you know that I happen to think that it can be a very good, powerful, practical, helpful tool to actually schedule sex for a married couple. And so far, we've covered 6 of the 10 principles that I have to share with you in this presentation. And I hope to finish up today with this third episode. But the first 6 principles that we've covered were these. Sex does not have to be spontaneous. That's one of the reasons that scheduling sex can be a good idea, because sex does not always have to be spontaneous. Number 2, sometimes it's better to make something happen instead of waiting for something to happen. Number 3, a schedule makes sexual intimacy the priority that it should be in your relationship and marriage. Number 4, a schedule does not have to eliminate spontaneity. Number 5, a schedule will facilitate and strengthen the sexual alliance between a couple. And principle number 6 was this: a schedule will bring accountability to both partners in the marriage, the high desire partner and the low desire partner. And with that, therefore, being said, it brings us to principle 7, where we will continue today. Is scheduling sex a good idea? Principle 7 is this: a schedule will relieve all the weirdness that can happen around sex. And let me just try to explain this idea to you guys the best that I can. And I want to note that when I first wrote this point, I wrote it differently. Then I came back and edited it, because when I first wrote it, I wrote, a schedule will eliminate all the weirdness that can happen around sex. Then I realized that I should change the word eliminate to the word relieve, because the fact is I'm not sure that it would ever be possible to actually eliminate all the weirdness that happens around sex. But with a schedule, I believe that it can be possible to at least relieve the inevitable weirdness that happens around sex in many, if not most, relationships. And therefore, the 7th point is this: a schedule will relieve. Operative word there is the word relieve. A schedule will relieve, not eliminate, but relieve all the weirdness that can happen around sex. And I trust you guys know what I'm talking about here. Let me ask you this question. Have you ever felt weirdness in your relationship around sex? Has there ever been any kind of weirdness at all? In other words, there can be tension, there can be confusion, there can be disagreement, there can be hurt, there can be anger, there can be bitterness, there can be a sense in which people seize control, or people use sex to hurt each other, to control each other, to punish each other, to reward each other. I'm telling you guys, there is so much weirdness around sex. Sex can get so weird that there's 2 different people, Mr. Jones and Mrs. Jones, and each person lives in their skin, and they see the world through their eyes, and they feel their feelings, and they have their thoughts, and they have their desires and preferences. And since it's 2 different people, they see it different, they think different, they feel different, they want different things frequently. And this leads to this disparity and this confusion and this disorientation. And then people feel weird. I feel like we're not having enough sex. I want to initiate, but I don't know if I should. What if she's not interested? And she feels like, why is he always pressuring me for sex? All he wants is sex, sex, sex. Is that all he thinks about? And so people begin to misunderstand each other, and there's this confusion and disorientation. So all of this, I'm just trying to put words to the fact that I would advocate that for virtually every single couple, without exception, not even 99% of the time, 100% of the time, there can be and will be weirdness around sex. It's so difficult. There's so much misunderstanding, and it can get so weird. And therefore, this seventh principle, a schedule will relieve the weirdness that can happen around sex. And in the way of example, let me just go ahead and I'm going to read a little thing that I wrote here of a self-dialogue that happens within a man when he's getting confused and overwhelmed or disoriented. He's feeling a sense of angst because of sex with his wife. He's confused about it. He wants it, but he doesn't know. Should he initiate? Because it seems like she kind of doesn't want it. And how do I know if she wants it and when she wants it? And what should I do? And it gets all weird, right? So we get in this place where we're having this self-dialogue. So I wrote this out as just kind of a metaphorical example of the weirdness that can be happening on the inside of a person in their head when it comes to sex. And let me just say that I wrote this as a metaphor, but I probably wrote it as a very real, tangible example of my own heart and life. And the early years of my marriage, and when everything was so completely weird around sex, and it was so hard and so hurtful and so confusing and overwhelming, and I would have these never-ending dialogues in my head. And whatever this is that I'm going to give you this example of this self-dialogue, imagine it times 10 at least, because this is a little baby thing going on in the inside of a man, in his head and his heart, and his self-talk and his confusion within himself around these issues. And I don't think that this example is exaggerated at all, what might be going on inside a guy's head and a guy's heart. And of course, I would advocate, I'm kind of writing this from the male point of view, but I have no doubt that females, potentially every wife, could also have her own self-dialogue and what is going on in her head and her thoughts as she struggles with confusion and tension and angst and upset or anger or disorientation around sex and sexual intimacy with her husband and what's going on and why does he want it? Is he pressuring me, or why doesn't he want it? Or all these things that happen between people, and then what it provokes within us as individuals. So here's my sample self-dialogue. So this man is thinking, man, oh man, I would really like to initiate sex with my wife. I wonder if maybe it could happen today. Maybe today is the day, because it hasn't happened in a while, so maybe today could be the day. And I wonder if she might be in the mood. I wonder if maybe she would be receptive. So I wonder if I should say something to her, or maybe do something that would signal her that I'm interested. I'd kind of like to be intimate. But what if she isn't in the mood? Because so often it seems like she's not in the mood, and I just don't know what to do. And what if she doesn't want to? And what if she misunderstands my initiation? What if she receives it as pressure? And I sure don't want to pressure her or push her away from me. I've done that enough, but it's been a while since it's happened, and she has to know that. And I'd really like to initiate, and I'd really like to be intimate, and I need to be intimate. And she probably knows that too, but I know that in the past she's perceived my desire and my need as a kind of pressure, and it's turned her off, and it's pushed her away from me, and it's made her even resent me, I think. And I certainly don't want that to happen, but at the same time, she's my wife, and I'm supposed to take my sexual desire and my sexual passion and interest to her. because she's my wife. And I'm supposed to make her the only object of my desire and passion. And I am a man, and I desire my wife. And I'm not going to apologize for that. And I want to be with my wife, and I want to make love to my wife. But what if she doesn't want to? And what if she's not ready? Or what if she's not interested? So I'm really afraid to initiate toward her, because what if she says no, like she's done so many other times? And what if she rejects me again? Because I absolutely hate when that happens. Because I hate how it makes me feel. Because it makes me feel rejected. It makes me feel hurt. It makes me feel confused. It makes me feel like there must be something wrong with me. Because my own wife doesn't even desire me. Like, what the heck? My own wife doesn't even want to be with me. Like, what did I do wrong? What's so bad about me? Why is it like this? Why does it seem like my own wife doesn't even enjoy me? So I wonder what I should do, because I'd really like to be with my wife, but at the same time, I'm afraid to initiate toward my wife because I'm not sure if it's safe, and I'm not sure if she's really ready, and I'm not sure if she's really interested. And on top of all that, she seems just so busy and distracted all the time. And it seems like every single other thing is more important than being intimate with me as her husband. Well, she's got to do this. She's got to do that. She's got to fix dinner. She's got to mop the floor. She's got to get the kids ready for bed. And by the time she does everything she does, she's tired all the time. And I guess I understand, but it seems like I'm relegated to the least important priority. Like, I come last after every other single thing. And I'm just not detecting any interest or desire in her, any signal from her at all. Like, I'm not sure, but it seems like she could go on and on and on forever without sex, and maybe never ever have sex again. And I'm not sure, but I think she might be totally fine with that. And if we never had sex again, I'm not sure she'd even notice or even care. So what the heck am I supposed to do? And how's that supposed to make me feel as a man? Because it kind of makes me feel like a starving and begging dog. Like I'm sitting there looking at her, waiting for her to throw me a bone. Like, I really want and need this, but basically she could care less about it. So it basically feels really risky to me to initiate. It feels really scary, and it feels really unsafe, because just like 1,000 times before, I'm probably going to initiate, and she's probably going to give me the cold shoulder. She's probably going to reject me again, just like she does most of the time. So I'm thinking maybe what I need to do is just forget about it, because I'm just not sure it's worth it. Maybe what I ought to do instead is just watch some porn. Maybe I should just take care of it myself, because I think that would just be easier, and it would just be safer, and it would be way less confusing, that's for sure. So I don't know what to do. I'd really like to be with my wife, but I just don't get it, and I don't know if I should initiate. I don't know if she's interested. I just don't know where to go from here. Okay, guys, in the role play, so you get the idea of what's reflected by this metaphorical self-talk of this man who's feeling confused and unsafe and unsure should he initiate toward his wife because he's interested, but he don't know if it's time, and he don't know if she's interested, and blah, blah, blah. It goes on and on. So what I'm advocating here, you guys, is that a schedule could go a long way toward relieving all this angst and fear and worry and anxiety and freaking out that happens in both partners around sex. I modeled it just there in my role play from Mr. Jones, right? What it might look like for a guy, what's going on in his head. When will it happen again? Will it be today? Will it be tomorrow? How will I know? How do I know when she's in the mood, etc.? But I would advocate that a whole self-talk and metaphorical example could be written from a wife's point of view, a female point of view, where she might be thinking and feeling and struggling with thoughts that all he wants is sex, and he's constantly pressuring me for sex, and he doesn't care about anything else about me, and he doesn't take anything else about me in appreciation. He takes all this for granted, and he objectifies me. So both people have their own struggles, and the very point is that there is weirdness around sex, even for married people. And just in the way of remembrance, you guys, I'm just thinking out loud here, but if you've followed this podcast, you know that I've interviewed a gal, Dr. Julie Slattery, and she's an amazing person. She's an author. She was the co-host on Focus on the Family for several years, and she has her own ministry now where she helps couples struggling with sexual intimacy, and she's written several books, and I've interviewed her 2 different times on the podcast, and I would encourage you to check that out if you've never heard those interviews. And by the way, guys, those particular episodes of the Power of Purity podcast were episodes 171 and 172, called Authentic Intimacy with Dr. Julie Slattery, and episodes 218 and 219 entitled Really Hard Questions for Dr. Julie Slattery. So check those out because Dr. Julie is really amazing. But the point being that I remember in my conversation with her that she does statistical reports and surveys of men and women and all this information and analysis. And when she interviewed men, what emerged as a primary insecurity for the average man. I mean, can you imagine this? Big, burly, tough guys with testosterone, right? They're willing to build cinder block walls and cut down trees and run chainsaws and face an angry dog, and tough guys, right? They can do anything to conquer the world. What is the average man most afraid of in his tender, most vulnerable place? What is he afraid of? What is the thing that makes him more insecure than anything? That for the average man, the primary place of insecurity that he struggles with and experiences in his heart and life is when he attempts to approach his wife for sex. That's where men feel insecure. That's what makes men feel unsafe and makes them feel afraid. Because I think it exposes a man at the deepest level of his self, his masculinity, and when he takes the chance to initiate toward his wife sexually, he's putting himself out there very vulnerably because she now has the power to reject him basically at the most tender, vulnerable place of his masculine self-identity and self-image and self-esteem. Like, dude, you can reject me, the deepest part of who I am as a man, my deepest identity, my gender, my masculinity, my sexual self. That's what I'm offering to my wife. That's how I'm moving toward her, and she doesn't want it. No wonder it makes a man feel so unsafe and so vulnerable, and it's so risky for the average guy. I just think that's incredibly powerful to see that and to understand that. It helps us understand why a man goes into this place in his head and heart that I just tried to illustrate with this self-dialogue, where he's struggling with himself, wanting to initiate, but not sure if he should, and afraid to do so because it feels so unsafe and risky. So again, point number 7 here is that a schedule will relieve all the weirdness that can happen around sex. The schedule provides a mechanism that essentially is like taking a gigantic weight off of a person's shoulders. And there's this gigantic sigh of relief. And why the relief? because when you establish a schedule, now both people in the marriage know it's going to happen Wednesday night and Saturday night. So now I don't have to sit there paranoid and freaked out all week long on Thursday thinking, is today? Is it going to happen today? It hasn't happened in a while. Maybe if not today, maybe tomorrow. Is she in the mood? Should I initiate? I don't know. How is she feeling? What if she doesn't want to? What if she what do I do? So you don't have to go through that every day, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, waiting, trying to figure it out. Because once the schedule is established, the sigh of relief, because I don't have to worry on Sunday and Monday and Tuesday, because I know it's going to happen Wednesday. We have the agreement, and it's going to happen Saturday. So it relieves all this confusion and weirdness and not being safe and speculation. And once a couple gets into the rhythm of a schedule, it relieves them. They're moving toward each other. They know it's going to happen. It's part of their schedule. It's a priority to them. And it greatly diminishes all this weirdness. And I think this is a gigantic advantage that a schedule has to offer. And with that being said, it brings us to point number 8. Is scheduling sex a good idea? Point 8 is this. A schedule can facilitate the transition from unhealthy to healthy and from dysfunctional to functional. And I would suggest that a schedule can be a very appropriate and helpful stepping stone to bridge the gap for many couples between the unhealthy place they've been living in the past to the healthy place that they're moving toward in their future, or from the dysfunctional place they've been to the functional place where they're going. And what I'd like to offer here, guys, as evidence is just a little bit of personal testimony, which I touched on last week, but I have no doubt whatsoever that using a schedule was a huge stepping stone for Sherry and I as we were coming out of what I affectionately refer to as the dark days of our marriage. We were so disconnected, we didn't know how to move toward each other, how to connect on an intimate level with each other, and it would be months and months in between, and it was so confusing and overwhelming. And so as we were going through our therapeutic process and God was healing our hearts and our shame and helping us get in a better place, my sexual addiction was being broken from my soul. The chains of sexual addiction were being broken, and Sherry was being set free from her shame. We were getting healthier in our relationship with our sexual selves as individuals, which means that we could now turn to face each other and move toward each other within the context of our marriage in a much healthier way, and begin to relate to each other and connect with each other in a healthier way. But I would suggest it's not a magical day where you go from unhealthy to healthy. It's like when you've been in this prolonged place where you have not been functioning in a healthy way, it's been rather sick and dysfunctional and unhealthy. It's like, how do you move toward each other? How do you know how to do it? How do you figure it out? So what I'm suggesting here is that if you use a schedule right there, imagine that if there's a couple that's been very disconnected and very unhealthy for whatever reasons, that if they came to the place where they could agree to use a schedule, let's say that they're going to make love, share physical intimacy just one time per week to start off as a stepping stone, kind of a bridge. So they decide Sunday afternoon is going to be our time. So it helps to relieve all the weirdness that they've been living for years in the past. So now they don't have to be all worried and freaked out all week long. Is it going to happen? When's it going to happen? What should I do? What should I say? Because they're committed to every Sunday. So as they experience that on Sunday, then the next week, the next week, the next week, as they begin to walk out their schedule over a period of weeks and months, it's going to bring a sense of relief to their relationship, and it's becoming a bridge for them from the unhealthy couple they used to be. They're crossing this bridge now of their schedule once a week that's helping them learn to move toward each other and find each other and connect and be present and to have a regularity that's been missing. So it becomes the bridge. The schedule is the bridge that helps them transition from a place of non-health to a place of health, from a place of dysfunction to a place of functioning together. And all I can tell you guys is that I have no doubt, absolute 100%, hands down, that using a schedule was a tremendously powerful and significant and useful tool that was necessary in the healing journey of my marriage. And I'm very grateful that we were able to do that. And with that being said, it brings us to principle 9 of our presentation. Is scheduling sex a good idea? Principle 9 is this: a schedule will allow both people to prepare themselves however they need to prepare themselves because they know it's coming up. And so let's say that there's been dysfunction and non-health and it's been insecure and kind of weird all around sex, and this metaphorical couple decides they're going to start using a schedule once a week, every Sunday afternoon. So it will help each of them to prepare mentally and emotionally and spiritually however they need to be preparing in order to move forward in this process. So let's say that it's a Wednesday. So Mr. and Mrs. Jones both, this metaphorical couple, they can be relieved because they know it's not going to happen today. It's only Wednesday, but I know that on Sunday we're going to be intimate. So I need to kind of start thinking about that. I need to get myself ready for Sunday. Then the next day comes. It's Thursday. So now they're each thinking, okay, I'm looking forward to Sunday. We're going to be intimate. He's thinking, I'm going to be intimate with my wife. She's thinking, I'm going to be intimate with my husband. So it's not today, so I don't need to worry about it today, but I need to start getting myself ready because it's only going to be 3 more days now, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So let's just get ourselves ready. Let's start getting in the mood. Let's be prepared for this. So then the next day, Friday comes. The next day, Saturday comes. And so you know what's coming up. So you can kind of be preparing yourself, your heart, your head, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, getting yourself ready because you know this is what our commitment is. So the day before, 2 days before, you might want to start getting yourself relaxed, getting yourself in the right mindset to where you can enjoy physical intimacy with your spouse. Maybe you take the day to start getting yourself in the mood. Maybe you listen to some nice music. Maybe the day before you take a nice bubble bath, you have a glass of wine, you take a long walk. You're relaxing into yourself. You're relaxing into your spouse and into this commitment and into your schedule and into what's going to happen tomorrow because you know tomorrow is the day. So this is giving yourself permission to get ready, giving yourself permission to let the juices start to flow a little bit, to start thinking about your partner. So you prepare yourself to share your heart and your soul and your body with your spouse and to share yourself completely and totally and intimately and vulnerably and even erotically with your spouse. So our 9th principle is scheduling sex a good idea? Yes, it is, because our 9th principle teaches us that a schedule will allow both people to prepare themselves however they need to prepare themselves because they know it's coming up. And with that said, it brings us to principle number 10, is scheduling sex a good idea? And I just want to observe a very practical thing here with principle 10, that there are many different ways that a couple can arrange a schedule. It doesn't necessarily have to work just one way. So, for example, you might decide how many times a week would work for you as a couple. So a couple might decide we're going to try for 1 time a week to start off. Or they might decide we're going to try for 2 times a week. I'll be honest with you, what happened in my situation when Sherry and I decided to use a schedule the first time, we decided to try for once a week, which would be absolutely wonderful as far as I was concerned because our regularity was nowhere near that. So if we could get on a regular schedule 1 time a week, that would be wonderful for me. And so we started that and we were successful because of the work that we had done in therapy and dealing with our issues, and we were moving toward each other. And so we were able to start connecting once a week. And then guess what happened? After we did that for a while, we agreed to try 2 times a week. Could we maybe try 2 times a week? Is that possible? And so we tried that. And so we were able to advance in our healing process. But you have to start somewhere. So there's different ways to arrange the schedule. You can specifically pick the days that you identify for your schedule. For example, if a couple decided to make love 1 time a week, they might choose Sunday afternoon. A different couple might decide 2 times per week. So they could say, okay, Wednesday evening and Saturday morning would be their 2 times. Or what about this? A couple could decide, we're going to do a schedule, but here's the way it will work. We won't have specific days. What we'll do is we'll take turns initiating, and we agree that we're going to try to be intimate 2 times per week. So Mr. Jones initiates first, then Mrs. Jones, then Mr. Jones, then Mrs. Jones, like that each week. So Mr. Jones has the opportunity to initiate whenever he wants to that week. It could be, say, Monday goes by, Tuesday goes by. So Wednesday he initiates, and it happens. So now he had his turn. So now Mrs. Jones gets to initiate the second time of the week. And since it already happened Wednesday, now she could initiate Thursday, the very next day if she wanted to. Or wait till Friday or Saturday or Sunday. So we're going to take turns initiating and have a little flexibility in there so it isn't specific days. Or let's say that if a couple decided that their agreed upon schedule at this time is 1 time per week, they could simply take turns alternating each week. So if this week is Mrs. Jones, then she can initiate anytime she wants to from Monday to Sunday during that week because it's her week. That's the schedule. But then the next week is Mr. Jones, then he has Monday to Sunday to initiate because that's his week. And they both know that, and they kind of both know what to expect. So even though it's his week to initiate, she's sitting there thinking, okay, he's going to initiate sometime this week. So let's say Thursday comes and he initiates, and she's not shocked. She's not surprised or offended or hurt because she knew that this was going to be happening. That's the agreement. And therefore, she's able to relax into the situation where, because she's kind of expecting it, she's able to respond accordingly. Or even if she's not in the mood on Thursday, part of the rule is that either person has the right to say no at any particular initiation. So if she says, honey, I'm just really not in the mood tonight, I'm sorry. I know that we're going to do it this week, but today's Thursday, I'd rather not. Then she pretty much knows that he has the right to initiate again on Friday or Saturday or Sunday. And there's an onus on her, an expectation for her to respond because the agreement is once per week. And so they take turns on alternate weeks like that. So there could be maybe several different ways to arrange a schedule that would even still allow for spontaneity in there, because it doesn't necessarily have to be set times of the week, like Wednesday night at 8 o'clock and Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock. So you can figure that out together. So principle 10 is this: there are many different ways to arrange a schedule. So with that being said, you guys, it brings us to the conclusion of this particular presentation. Is scheduling sex a good idea? And the short answer, as far as I'm concerned, is yes. I think that scheduling sex can be a very good idea for many couples, if not most couples, and even for couples that have been relatively healthy. You know, there's an ebb and a flow to life, and maybe you get into a period of life where you've been busy and helter-skelter and crazy, and you realize, man, we just haven't been connecting as much as we're used to. We've been a little bit too busy here, and it's becoming more infrequent, so maybe we should try a schedule here just for the next 3 months. Let's agree to something so we can get back into our sexual rhythm and our schedule with each other and keep this the priority that it needs to be. So the title was this: Is scheduling sex a good idea? And I shared 10 points with you guys, which were these. Number 1, sex does not have to be spontaneous. Number 2, sometimes it's better to make something happen instead of waiting for something to happen. Number 3, a schedule makes sexual intimacy the priority that it should be in your relationship and marriage. Number 4, a schedule does not have to eliminate spontaneity. Number 5, a schedule will facilitate and strengthen the sexual alliance between a couple. Number 6, a schedule will bring accountability to both the low desire partner and the high desire partner. Number 7, a schedule will relieve all the weirdness that can happen around sex. Number 8, a schedule can facilitate the transition from unhealthy to healthy and from dysfunctional to functional. Number 9, a schedule will allow both people to prepare themselves however they need to prepare themselves because they know it's coming up. And number 10, there are many different ways to arrange a schedule. So with that being said, you guys, it brings us to the conclusion of this particular presentation, which we've been reviewing now for the past 3 episodes. I hope that these thoughts will be a blessing and an encouragement to you, something for you to consider. I asked when I began this session that you just listen kind of with an open mind and an open heart and consider this. And I would suggest that a schedule can be something that can be very, very helpful for every married couple, depending on where they are and the ebb and flow of their relationship. And that if they've been missing each other, or if things have been irregular or not frequent enough as it should be, and you feel like something isn't right, then maybe you could try a schedule for a while to get you back on track. So I pray that that will be a blessing to you. As I close today's episode, I'll just remind you guys that we have upcoming a Power of Purity Intensive, 3 days that can change your life. Go to the Power of Purity website, click on the top there, it says Intensive Workshop to get more information. I'd love to meet you. I'd love for you to come to the intensive so we can worship God together. We can talk together, we can visit together and work through some things that will help us process and understand ourselves and get in a healthier place in our relationship with our sexual self than we've ever been. God bless you guys. I'll look forward to seeing you right back here next week for the next episode of the Power of Purity podcast. Bye-bye now.
Thanks for listening. Visit powerofpurity.org for more resources and information. And if this podcast has been helpful or encouraging, please invite a friend to listen. Until next time, remember, there's power in purity.